At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Ask you something real quick.
Ask me.
Do we want to categorize this as an Al Polka or an Al original? Because, like, it is Polkamon. But as far as I can tell, we've talked about how, like, Bohemian Rhapsody was this outlier because it was technically a cover song done in polka. But
Sure.
This is a fully original song that Al wrote that just happens to be a polka. It's not a polka medley, really.
It's not a polka medley, but I still think it's a polka.
Okay.
I think it's going to make more sense for us to, if we're talking about purely rankings, I think it's going to make a lot more sense for us to categorize this as a polka in terms of what we're comparing it to.
Yeah. I thought that was fair, too. I just thought, man, we thought Bohemian Polka was an outlier, but, like, this is an even bigger outlier to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a non-album polka, which is the first one of these that he ever did. He will go on to do more.
Yeah.
Funny enough, there's actually quite a few in more recent years. I mean, obviously, the last thing he released was a non-album polka. The thing before that was a non-album polka, I think, unless I'm forgetting something.
There was an original
song from Weird.
Yeah, there was an original song for Weird, but that was part of the Weird soundtrack, which is like its own separate beast.
Sort of its own thing.
Hamilton Polka and Polkamania are literally digital singles. They're not attributed to anything really beyond.
I think did Hamilton Polka came out on something? Was it like
No, I think it was just when Hamilton. We'll get there when we get there, but I believe,
of course, yeah.
I believe the circumstances of that was like when Hamilton was at its absolute like peak. That like once a week, Lin-Manuel Miranda would just do some type of Hamilton collab or something in that realm, and Hamilton Polka was just one of the many things that he like asked somebody to do as part of this like weekly Hamilton thing. Because there's a really, really cute one that's I can't remember the actor's name, but it's the actor who plays George Washington in the original Hamilton.
Right.
And it's him and Elmo. And they're singing Story of Tonight. And like Elmo keeps interrupting him. Like he's like, when our children tell our story. And then Elmo's like, Elmo has no children. Elmo is 3.5 years old.
There you go. That's cute. Yeah. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear that. But yeah, no, you're right. They are they were referred to as the Hamilton Hamel Drops.
Yeah.
In 2017 and 2018. And it was the sequel to the Hamilton mixtape, which is what I was thinking of. Yeah. That did come out physically, but this was a digital series of drops, and Hamilton Polka was the third of those. Yeah. So you're right. Still not a physical release, but another classic right out the gate tangent there.
Yeah.
But this did come out.
I want to stay on that tangent for just 1 second. because it'll be like another year before we get to talk about Hamilton. That Hamilton mixtape is amazing, and I highly recommend, if you are even a little bit of a Hamilton fan, that you have to listen to it. Have you ever heard the Hamilton mixtape, Matt?
I have not.
Okay.
You know, I was one of those people. I saw Hamilton fairly recently, and I knew so many people who, leading up to it, they were like, "Oh, even though you haven't seen it, you should still listen to the music," and that just did not compute for me at all. I just never did. I just was like, I don't know how to sit and listen to the score for the cast recording for a musical I haven't seen. It just didn't feel right to me, so I missed a lot of that stuff.
I mostly agree with you. I think Hamilton is like a weird exception because there's really no dialogue, so you can.
That's what everybody said.
You can just follow the story through the songs. But the Hamilton mixtape, you need to check out the Hamilton mixtape. So the Hamilton mixtape is that basically Lin-Manuel Miranda, at the peak of his powers, got the artists whose music inspired specific songs to cover those songs from Hamilton. So like Usher covers Wait For It because it's inspired by like a specific Usher song. He got Ashanti and Ja Rule to do one of the songs because the song was inspired by I'm Real, which was like, it's a great, but the peak track is Dear Theodosia, which is like a truly beautiful song in the middle of that album, is a Ben Folds Regina Spektor collaboration. Which is
very cool.
I mean, he got some like heavy hitters, and then Jimmy Fallon's there too, but he mostly got really great people.
He does count as a heavy hitter. You can't take that away from him. He does count as a heavy hitter.
That is true. But yeah,
all right.
But
well,
yes.
You know what? By the time a year has passed and we get to talk about the Hamilton polka, I will do everything in my power to have heard the Hamilton mixtape, and maybe even all of the Hamil drops.
Maybe all the Hamil drops.
I'll see if I can find time for all 13 Hamil drops that followed the mixtape.
But you know what? It makes sense in this because the Hamilton craze, I think, could be comparable to the Pokemon craze of the 90s and 2000s.
There you go. That's a great, that's a really solid attempt to get us back on track. Maybe. I think Pokemon overall has made a significantly more thorough dent in pop culture. I mean, it has many, many years on Hamilton at this point. Not true, Alexander Hamilton, but Hamilton the show. No, and you know what's funny? Did you notice? I'm sure you did. Like this soundtrack. So this was on the soundtrack to Pokemon 2000.
Yeah, I thought it was the first one. I thought for sure it was Pokemon the movie.
I thought it was too. It's the second Pokemon movie soundtrack, which is not streaming right now. Did you find it? I couldn't find it anywhere.
No. I just watched it on YouTube. Someone did a YouTube video where they put the characters with the song lyrics.
Exactly. We saw the same thing, I'm sure. So it is available to hear, watch, of course, like so many things. It's up on YouTube, but it's not streaming, which is so interesting. Boy, is there a ton of Pokemon content on streaming platforms, and this isn't, which is so weird. I also noted, I don't know if you saw this in your research, but I had not seen this before. Apparently, Al really tried because he wanted this to be on medium rarities, and he could not get the permission in time to include it.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of work that was put into this song. I got a question. You. I got a question for you, Matt. What is your Pokemon fandom level?
It is minimal.
Yeah,
I gotta say, I actually feel a little bit sad now in hindsight that I didn't get into this at the time.
Yeah.
Because I knew everybody who had it and everybody who loved it so much, and I really tried. I really did try with Pokemon on Game Boy, and I could not get into it.
So I'm not too far off from you. There was two things that I got sucked into with Pokemon. Never could get into the cartoon, never got into the games. But for like maybe 3 or 4 months, me and my friends would go to the local comic book shop every Saturday and play the Pokemon card game against people. And it was similar to like when you saw people play Magic the Gathering. It was like the same basic game mechanics. I got really sucked into that for a while. Now for $1 billion, I couldn't tell you how to play the card game Pokemon. But for 3 months, I knew all the rules and knew how to stack your deck in a way that you might have a higher chance of pulling just the card you needed at the right moment. And then This is a thing that my girlfriend makes fun of me about all the time, but I still every morning play a couple hours of Pokemon Go to clear my head. I
have a couple friends in my life a couple who actually listen to this show who also still play Pokemon Go. And every time I see them do it, I'm like, man, respect.
Yeah.
You're still doing it. I also did play Pokemon Go for a very, very brief time. That is a really wonderful, it's been said before, but that now feels like
a million years ago.
A million years ago. It was like just pre-pandemic stuff. It felt like this really very wholesome, wonderful moment in time that now feels, like that was another species who invented that game.
It was like 2018 or 19. And I remember me and my friends, we're going to get real nerdy about Pokemon Go for a second. But if you remember, when it struck midnight, if you were in a gym, you got like 20 coins for every gym that you were in. And near where I live is a town called Media, which is like a small city. It's like designed like a city, but it's a suburb. But because of that, there was enough major landmarks that there was like 20 gyms in like one strip of road. So at like 11:30 at night for weeks, my friends and I would load into the car, we'd drive to Media, and we'd just like walk down that street and get into every gym that we could so that we could get enough coins to like up our storage space or whatever. But you'd walk around and the only other people out at night were other people playing Pokemon Go.
So the peak of my activity, and I just had to look, and I can't believe this is, I think, a symptom of getting older, because I just cannot believe how long ago things were now.
Was it 2019?
Pokemon
16?
Go started in 2016.
Wow. I think that's why we needed it.
July 6th of 2016, we did need it.
Yeah.
And there was a point in time where I was super in, and I would go, there were areas around the city and Long Island where I have, friends and family, where it was like, oh, this is a good place to go. You take out the game and you'd either like walk along the boardwalk of a beach. I remember walking around a lake in a local park because that was a really popular spot. And there was just that moment where the craziest thing, it felt like everybody was looking at their phones at the same time, which they do now, but
you were all
everybody was playing this game.
You were all connected.
Everybody was playing this game. It was so crazy.
So
I mean, I've never. Can you think of a phone game, a mobile game that has ever even come close?
No.
I can't even imagine.
And that was like that was the problem, was that like they couldn't create new enough things for it. And then someone was just like, most people were just like, I'm sick of just catching Pidgeys every day. Like, I need like new Pokemon to catch. And like now there's like over 1,000 Pokemon variations that you can catch in the game. But that's over almost 10 years of them like updating the software. My two big memories, now that you mentioned that it was in July, so it was July 6th, you said?
July 6th, 2016.
So 2 weeks after that, I went to California for Comic-Con, which you can only imagine what San Diego Comic-Con, the month that Pokemon Go dropped, was like.
That must have been quite a time.
But right before that, Jonathan and I met up, and he picked me up and drove me to, I think it was Santa Monica Pier, because Nerdist.com was hosting a Pokemon Go get together where basically like there was a ton of Pokestops and gyms and stuff on the pier, and they like paid some companies to make sure that there was lures on every location, so that there was going to be like thousands and thousands of Pokemon for like an hour and a half.
Right.
And John and I just like wandered the pier and like met other Pokemon Go people and traded friend codes and stuff. Like, it was a crazy time. It's not like,
you know
that
what
anymore.
I'm remembering from a similar thing on that. It must have been 2016 or maybe it was 2017. I don't know. It was the peak. It felt like the peak of the craze. And I played at a Penny Arcade Expo with MC Frontalot. And he does a thing where every time he plays at Penny Arcade, he has a song about Penny Arcade, and the rap is the same, but the instrumental changes each time.
Yeah.
Every time he's done it with a completely different backing track. And me and his band learned how to play the old school classic TV Pokemon theme song for him to rap over, because Pokemon Go was so huge at the time, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
It was the best. I have such good memories of that. That's my anchor moment in time, was like how huge Pokemon was, that we resurrected that so many years later.
But that's the thing. I think Pokemon has gone through these multiple eras, right? Because Pokemon Go is a solid 10, 15 years after like South Park was making fun of the fandom of like with their Chin Pokemon episode where like the kids were becoming obsessed with Pokemon. And this is we're painting the picture of this is where Al Yankovic shows up and the Pokemon movie sequel comes out and they say, hey, for the English dub of the movie, how would you like to write an original for the closing credits? And he did what I guess was the best idea at the time, which was a polka where he just named a shit ton of Pokemon.
I mean, yeah, you know what? For Al, for this type of a thing, like this was, I can't imagine. I don't know if they asked him for a polka. Did you see anything about that? Or they just wanted a song and he came up with this? This is a great idea for how to do this well, or lean into his strengths, I should say.
It had to be one of two things. They either had to give him just a clear runway, or somebody said the phrase Polkamon, and they were just like, well, we know who can do a polka. And they
who knows? Yeah, I feel like that has to be Al.
Yeah.
I feel like Al must have been like Polkamon.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of writes itself. Because, like, would you have wanted, like, if Al has to do a song about Pokemon, I would take this over, like, forcing it into a song parody or trying to do a style parody. Like, this is, I think, the classic, most wholesome way that he could do this and it feel timeless. Because if he tried to shove it into, like, changing the lyrics to like a hit song of the day, which probably wasn't even an option on the table because I'm sure that they weren't.
Probably not.
They probably weren't going to be willing to pay for the copyrights for someone else. So he was going to have to write an original song anyway. And like, not for nothing, what can you really say? I'm gonna go with the assumption that Al Yankovic, and maybe one day we'll get to interview him and ask him. I'm going to go with the assumption that in 2000, Pokemon was a thing that Al was aware existed, but did not have the knowledge to write an original song about Pokemon.
Possibly. I mean, I would guess that's probably the case. I mean, it makes the most sense. I mean, I just to give credit, because in terms of like, what do you write about? I agree with you, but also, and this is another funny thing that gives a good idea of just how huge Pokemon was, I guess still is. I mean, it's definitely still very popular, but on this soundtrack, this is the second movie. This is smaller than the first one, and yet the lead track is an original song by Donna Summer.
Yeah.
The Power of One by Donna Summer. There's also an original song on here by the B-52s. That's right after Al's track. That's called The Chosen One. I mean, it's wild.
It's wild,
like,
but
they really got. I mean, there's also like Westlife is on here. A lot of good pop artists at the time. Dream Street. 2 tracks from O-Town.
I did catch that. I did clock that O-Town showed up twice.
And also, I must mention, because I just saw it as a footnote and I thought it was so funny. On that same soundtrack, Donna Summer's The Power of One. I don't remember this, but apparently that there was lyrics from that song, The Power of One by Donna Summer, that multiple times Herman Cain, when he was running for president, quoted this song on the campaign trail. So many times that Donna Summer had to be like, stop doing that. Like they had to like tell him no, like stop doing this.
It was a number 2 dance track in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. But Herman Cain apparently kept quoting this song. And at one point he attributed it to a poet, but it was actually this Donna Summer song from the Pokemon soundtrack. God, so weird. I mean, what a bizarre.
Now
he apparently said in his thing that he thought they were part of a song that played during the closing of the 2000 Olympics. And people had to tell him, like, no, you're mistaken. They were not featured in the Olympics. They were featured in the movie Pokemon 2000. Not the Olympics 2000.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number 1 contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate Pina Colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Introducing Internet Supreme Court,
a new live stream show on Twitch and YouTube Live.
Our dishonorable judges and highly partial jury, that's you, join to cast judgment.
Every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's when we convene to debate the fate of memes and the weekly cultural zeitgeist.
From the hottest trends to the dumbest controversies.
Find out more at InternetSupremeCourt.com.
Subscribe to Geekscape TV on Twitch or YouTube to get notified when we're live.
InternetSupremeCourt.com.
Now, again, it's worth noting, though, as I'm looking at a little bit of this, that a lot of these songs are a couple things. They're either all written by similar musicians who worked on Pokemon. Like, I don't think Donna Summer sat down, watched Pokemon the movie 2000, and wrote a song about it as much as, like, I think that the team at Pokemon had some lyrics scribbled down and then like got some producers to help like craft a song. But Weird Al is one of the, because I'm only saying that because I noticed that the B-52s song does not attribute any of the B-52s as the writers of the song. And then I clicked into that and was like, oh, this guy's associated with Pokemon that wrote this song. And then like, I think the Westlife song is like just a random song from their album that came out a year or two earlier.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not all written exclusive to the movie. And I actually don't know if Donna Summer ever writes in any circumstance. No, she might not. But
I genuinely think that Al Yankovic, across this entire soundtrack, is the only person who was hired specifically for a song on this soundtrack that he, in fact, sat down and wrote lyrics out for.
That might be true. Yeah. And also, arguably, like, should he have given someone else a writing credit? Because he didn't come up with all these names. I mean, he did write, there's that sort of bridge in the middle of the It's Time to Polka section, which is great.
That's the best part of the song, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's, we're talking about a lot of things besides the song, and I think that that's going to reflect on our rankings across the polkas, potentially. But it's basically, I mean, the song is, like at its core, the premise of the song is, man, a lot of these Pokemon's names rhyme.
Yes. He basically just names like 50 something Pokemon. I actually didn't count. It's not all of them. It's not even all of the original. He does make a reference in that break about how he has named a bunch and there's still 127 more. Threw in a 27 there, which I appreciate. That's classic Al. He gets a 27 in there. Did you notice there is a fun little joke that he hides in this song? Did you find this by chance?
A fun little joke that he hides. I'm taking a look here.
Because really, almost all of it, I mean, it's exclusively him naming Pokemon, except for the bridge where he goes, it's time to polka for Ponyta and Pidgey 2. Come on, put on your Lederhosen, great polka reference, and try not to step on little Pikachu. You better grab yourself a partner like Tentacruel or Bulbasaur. Hold on a minute, there's still at least 127 more.
Yeah.
And then he goes back down the list. But before that, as he's naming Pokemon, there is like a little hidden joke. And I'll let you off the hook really soon.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch you struggle for one more minute.
I'm reading
for the people who are listening.
I know that he reads Ditto incorrectly.
He doesn't read it incorrectly.
He says Dido, right?
No, he says Ditto.
Oh. Then I don't know. Tell me what I'm missing.
You're very close. The joke is that he says Ditto twice.
Oh.
He puts it in verse 1 and verse 2.
Oh my God, there it is in the exact same spot.
Exactly. In verse 1 and verse 2, he says Ditto both times, Ditto being the Pokemon that repeats itself. So that's the one little fun Pokemon. He had some knowledge. That shows just a little. I mean, actually, you don't even need to know anything about Pokemon to know what the word Ditto means.
I was going to say, Matt.
There's it's not necessary at all. But because there's really pretty much no jokes in this other than, how silly and fun it is. But that's one little like
he names,
fun jokey reference in there. I like that.
He names 53 Pokemon in the song.
53. Okay, so that's pretty respectable.
I just sat here and did a quick count.
That was good.
But yeah, the big thing. I mean, I think the highlights of the song. Now that I see that Ditto joke, that's perfect.
Yeah, right.
They do a pitch down on the second verse when he says "everybody Pokemon." It almost sounds. I would have even said maybe it's Steve J because it is very bassy on that one. They're like "everybody Pokemon."
Yeah,
and then bridge. The bridge is fantastic, but I mean, this is among one of the shortest Al Yankovic songs. Like,
it's very, very short compared to all the other polkas we talked about. This is really straightforward. Although I will say, just as a more straight piece, there's a lot of instrumental breaks. Like every time he finishes a verse, there's this instrumental break, and it's fun. It's like he plays really impressive accordion playing across this entire thing. Like he is showing off musically more than lyrically.
We've talked about this before. A lot of the polka medleys, questionable how much of a polka it is. Like, it's using polka instruments and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily follow, like, the structure of a traditional polka in the way that it's presented. This is, like, the most straightforward polka Al has ever done.
So far that we have heard, absolutely it is. All the way down to that bridge, which feels very it's time to polka.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like this is a very
melody.
Yeah, it feels like a Frankie. Like this is right up there with like Pennsylvania polka from Frankie Yankovic.
Yeah.
The bridge, honestly, people don't think about this as a polka, but it is. Like the chicken dance is technically a polka, right? Like da 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 da.
It's true.
The bridge feels similar to the bridge of the chicken dance, where it da 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 da.
Yeah, you're right. It is very similar.
Like, so it's a fun. I think that this song's fun, and I think that that's why it's gonna be kind of like. I mean, I'm probably gonna put this at the bottom. I'm taking a look at the polkas right now. It's probably gonna go at the bottom, but I don't want people to interpret that as like I think that this song is bad. You know what I mean? Like when I have like a Buckingham Blues or a Toothless People near the bottom of the list, it is me like actively saying you can skip this Al track if you so choose. Like it is not required listening. I don't think that that's the case because I think every polka Al has ever done should be required listening for a Weird Al fan. I'm just saying that this is the one with the least meat on the bones, which makes it kind of the least enjoyable to me. And I'm honestly staring at my list and being like, I don't know, I might actually listen to this again before I listen to Hot Rocks Polka, if I'm being honest. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah, like I'm not sure. You know what? I'm doing this now just because I've made this decision. Sorry, Rolling Stones. I am going to put this one spot above the Hot Rocks Polka because if there was ever a polka that I personally felt like people could sit out, if you're not a Stones fan, I feel like the Hot Rocks Polka doesn't give you a lot to like smile about.
That's so wow. I'm impressed. That's really well, I guess you and I are pretty different on the Hot Rocks because I have the Hot Rocks Polka considerably higher than yours.
Yeah.
Than you do.
Basically, we agree on the polkas, except for our opinions on Hot Rocks and Bohemian Polka are flipped. Is like most of it. Yeah.
And you know what? I am actually going to just basically agree with you and put this at the bottom.
Okay.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's really fun. And in terms of a traditional, I mean, like this is the most like authentic polka that we've heard from Al.
Yeah.
Since Who Stole the Kishka?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
This is the most like traditional, and I really do think people should hear it. You know, I actually, in doing a little bit of research about this, there are loads and loads of comments and posts on Reddit and even on Al's website of people being like, "I did not know this existed."
Yeah,
and you are forgiven for not knowing because it did not make it on any of Al's records. It is a smack in the middle of a soundtrack that is currently not streaming anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really, this counts among the most obscure things that we have actually talked about of his recorded music.
Yeah.
so far. Like, this is kind of lost.
This is like, unless you were literally a middle schooler in 2000.
Yeah.
Like that, because it was a very long time before I heard this song, but I heard about this song because all of like my friends who were into Pokemon and Weird Al, like this was a huge moment when this soundtrack came out and those worlds collided. But then they were like, yeah, it's just him like naming the Pokemon. I'm like, well, not much for me to do with that as a person who doesn't know most of the Pokemon. So I just like put it off for years before I finally heard it.
This was definitely one that I knew of, but again, I was not a Pokemon fan, so I missed it. I just did not hear this for a really long time. I was reminded of this when I was doing the playthrough, and someone asked me, they were like, "Are you going to do Polkamon?" And I was like, "I don't think I've ever heard it, but of course I will." And yeah, no, I'm glad to know it. I'm glad it's out there. I would strongly recommend, despite us ranking it a little bit low. I feel like that is just more. It's exactly what I said about the Bohemian Polka. It is just inherently less impressive than some of the other ones because of the nature of how this is made. It's not that it's bad. It's just not as showy and not as spectacular as most of his polka medleys are. Just to do one more like point on how popular Pokemon was, even more insane than the soundtrack to the second movie was the first movie soundtrack, which is an unbelievable, came out in 1999. Funny, yeah, in 1999, shortly after Running with Scissors, I guess. And on that soundtrack is Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, NSYNC, Bewitched, Emma Bunton from Spice Girls, 98 Degrees, Vitamin C, Aaron Carter, Blessed Union of Souls. I mean, like, what an unbelievable, like, it just says so much about how huge Pokemon was that like they were getting like true A-listers to record songs for these soundtracks. And a lot of them I think are actually unique to this, or at least they started out that way. Some of these I don't know. I don't like Britney Spears' Soda Pop. I don't know that song.
That's on the debut album. That's on
Is it on the debut album?
That's on Hit Me Baby One More Time.
Christina Aguilera's We're a Miracle.
That one
NSYNC's Somewhere Someday.
Those two might be OGs.
Some of them might be, yeah.
I'm checking.
I want to listen to Soda Pop again. I've heard that Britney record so many times, but I don't know. And apparently, if you bought the CD, it included a promotion to send in a proof of purchase to receive an exclusive Jigglypuff card for your deck. So I don't know if they're still honoring that promotion, but if you see that CD out in the wild, Al's not involved at all. But
I'm looking.
You can get a Jigglypuff.
I'm looking at this and. The Christina Aguilera song, she's a co-writer on that bad boy.
I noticed, yeah.
Yeah.
And another great example of the times, it came out in 1999, and less than 2 months later, it had gone double platinum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. 2 million copies of the soundtrack to the Pokemon movie. I mean, that is just wild.
I don't get to do this very often, but if people are enjoying this episode of Weird Algorithm, definitely check out Christmas 365's back catalog to really get a full grasp on how massive the Pokemon fandom was, because we reviewed the Pokemon Christmas Bash full-length album, like a 12-track album of Pokemon-themed Christmas songs.
Just wild. I mean, it's just really, despite not being a fan, I got nothing against Pokemon. I played Pokemon Go for a little while. I had a good time. And who knows? Maybe it's not too late. Maybe I'll find myself an old school Game Boy and give it one more try.
Yeah,
I just remember walking around in the grass and I could only get the same stupid, crappy, like worm Pokemon.
The snake thing.
And I just was like, I never got far enough to feel like I was doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, I've never played the video games, ever. Pokemon Go was the only video game that I ever touched.
There you go. Well, if anyone wants to send me a message and try to help me get into Pokemon, as far as I'm concerned, 2025, I'm 39. It's not too late. I'm ready.
I'm saying get back into Pokemon Go. You're on the road all the time. You'll constantly be able to catch Pokemon.
Start playing Pokemon Go again? Is that the saddest thing I could possibly do? Is that a cry for help?
Listen, think about when Pokemon Go first came out and where we were at in in the United States, and we're right back there. So we need
That's the worst part.
We need this bonding moment to come back.
We need to try something else. We don't need to go back and do it again. We need a new plan. We need a new game.
People were happy with Pokemon Go, and they voted differently.
Oh, God. I got to go back to Minesweeper or something.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week with more Weird Algorithm.
Yes.
Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Zysol is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Zysol keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all. Take Zysol. At night.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.